Hey everybody, here we are. It is Wednesday morning in Japan, and I guess it's Tuesday evening back in North America. And this is the Gaijin 50 plus live stream. Welcome everybody. I see we got some people already coming in here. Um, so welcome. We are doing well here in Tokyo. Everything's pleasant. Springtime is coming, still a little bit cloudy. Looking forward to some cherry blossoms coming up here soon. I may grab my camera and go out and take a few shots, but basically, I sort of like shy away from doing any kind of or too much of any cherry blossoms kind of things because they do bloom every year after all, and everybody else can see them. It's really funny sometimes, when it snows, people will go out there with their camera and post on Facebook, oh, it's snowing, and take a picture. But yeah, if you can see it snowing, everybody else can see it snowing too. So I can never understand that very much. How's everything going over on your end of the world? Still looking for some comments here. Let us know, give us a hello here as more people join us on here on the live stream. I hope I've got this set up right so I can see everybody's comments. I think I do. All right. So this week has been pretty exciting here over on the channel. If you don't mind me talking about a little channel news, we had a big spike in new viewers, and we've had a pretty successful. We had I think your chat is off, Dan says. Is it really? Oh, I hope not. Oh, I'm going to be bumbling around here a little bit as I try to check this out, so please bear with me. Dan says that my chat is off. I have to make sure that, boy, I hope I didn't. Chat is a big part of our life here. And so if it is off, that's going to be so terrible. Let me see if I can turn it on somehow. Oh, okay. I seem to be well, I don't know what I can do to turn chat on. Oh, there we go. It seemed to have just popped on all of a sudden. Okay, now Dan says, Happy April Fool's Day. Thank you, Shred Edward. I was thinking about doing some April Fool's joke, but I couldn't think of anything offhand. I guess I'm slow. Dan says, I think it was my problem. I refreshed the page and it's okay. No, I couldn't see anything on mine either. There was nothing coming in here. Okay, AWD 1001. Wow, that chat is fine. Okay, thank you. Thank you for everybody who's joining. If you're new here, if you're one of our new viewers who have joined us recently, like I said, we had an increase of about 250 or 300 new subscribers here over the past week. And I want to welcome everybody. If you're here with us on this live stream today, welcome here, and thank you for joining us. And I hope you enjoy your stay around here. Okay, let's go. I would like to. There's one thing I'd like to check with everybody. Now, this is an article. This is an article that I saw. I don't care about this particular article. I don't care about this. It's some kind of a joint training of Air Forces, Dutch and U.S. Air Forces. But the thing I want to ask everybody about is this picture. Look at this picture. I thought this pic was so strange. Evidently, this is the American guy. He's got a patch here. And I don't know for sure, but maybe this is this a Dutch guy or is this another American? I don't know. But evidently this is a Japanese guy. And they started training with using the state-of-the-art stealth fighter at Misawa Air Base in Japan. So evidently these are two Americans, or an American and a Dutch guy and a Japanese guy, and they're going to be doing joint training with stealth fighters. The one thing that struck me when I saw this picture, though, is the fact that look at these guys. They're bald, you know. They're total skinheads. And the Japanese guy has a full set of hair. He either it doesn't, he's not gray yet, or like me, he colors his hair. Why is it that so many gaijin guys are skinheads these days? I notice that when I look at pictures, a lot of even young men have premature bald. These guys aren't that young, so I don't know if you'd call it, but they have absolutely no hair on their head. Is this a thing? Is this a fashion thing, or is this something to do with the food or the environment or something like that? That's pretty interesting to me every time I see something like that. Oh, Richard in Japan, good morning. And Kelvin. Hey, Kelvin. Hi, everybody. Or hi to you. Good morning, good evening. Kelvin, in case I haven't mentioned, Kelvin's a rocket man, so he's pretty busy right now getting ready for something, and I'm glad you can make it, Kelvin. He sent me a note recently, earlier, saying that he was pretty busy and he didn't know if he'd make it. I'm glad that he did. And he said they're old and that handshake is cringe. Yeah, look at that. How that all, I guess that looks definitely staged. I don't think it was anything spontaneous or anything like that, but they want to show that they're all cool. Yeah, they're old. Maybe I wonder if they're commanders, but those guys, those gaijin guys, those are flight suits, aren't they? Uh-oh, the world is rocking here in Tokyo. We're in the middle of an earthquake. Things are rocking lightly back and forth, nothing serious, but it is definitely moving. I look up at every time this happens, when I go do is yeah, the lights start rocking back and forth, and it gets a little bit scary. And I really screwed up something here on my. Okay, here we go. So just now, we had a very small earthquake. It just started rocking like this a little bit. Everybody else in the area, I sure felt it, but it always is strange when they start. The small ones are not bad, you know. It feels like you're on a boat or on the back of a truck or something like that, and it's rocking gently. It's when it goes after that, right? Kelvin says it's the stress about these bald guys. He says it's the stress that they're going through. And he says, well, just a DBA. I work with the rocket folks. Okay, I don't know what DBA is, but I'll take your word for it. I'm not one of the smart ones. Okay. Yeah, you're not an astronaut yet, huh, Kelvin? Okay. And morning from Kansai. Hey, Chris, how are you? I think I've never seen your name before. If you're one of our new viewers, welcome. And it's good to see you. And don't feel anything in Osaka. Yeah, yeah, it felt pretty local. It's gone already. It's finished. Okay. Kelvin says that DBA is a database administrator. And he says he's too old to go up in those things. And Dan says, I felt nothing. Oh, really? Oh, it was definitely moving a bit. Like I said, what happens is what I do is when I get a little bit of a shake like that, what I tend to do is just look over at my lights. You know, you have lights hanging off the ceiling or on an arm in front of me, and the lights are a give as far as the earthquakes. And he says a 5 Jaku, less than, I don't know what the Jaku, a week 5 in Ibaraki. Yeah, Ibaraki, Aomori, Iwate, those are the places that get a lot of earthquakes. Those were the main places that got hit really bad with the Tohoku earthquake some time ago, because they're right on the coastline there, and a lot of that earthquake activity happens in the ocean just off the coast. All right. Dan says, yeah, I always feel he always feels unsteady, so he never knows when there's an earthquake happening. David Cole says a magnitude of 5. Okay. I'm a newbie to your gig, but unfortunately, I'm much over 50. Okay, Chris. Well, actually, Chris, the GAIJIN50 doesn't refer to age. It refers to my time in Japan. So I'm pretty much over 52. So welcome to the party, and you're among friends. You're among compatriots or contemporaries, I should say. And Dan says he's unsteady these days. Yeah, I know the feeling there, Dan. I didn't feel much here in Iruma. Okay. All right. So I wish I could delete or edit my yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it? If we could delete or edit comments. I'm the same way. Sometimes you're in the middle of something and you're tapping away and you look up and say, oh, did I just type that? And then you wish you could undo it. All right. I'm 36. Oh, Shred Edward, 36. What, in Japan? Or 36 years old? If you're 36 years old, you're just a kid. So, but I think you mentioned, I think if I remember correctly, Shred Edward, you're up there a lot of the same as a lot of the others here. I'm 66 and I've been here since 1994. Okay, yeah, you're in good hands. I'm a little bit older than you, but I don't feel it in my heart. I once read a story one time. Some guy, way back when I was younger, some old guy was talking about, and he says, sometimes I feel like I'm just somebody. I fell asleep and somebody put all this old guy makeup on me, because inside I feel the same way I've always felt. And I laughed when I read that, but now I know what he's talking about. Okay. 1995, still a newbie, says Fred Edward. Uh-oh, we're pulling rank on people here. And Shred Edwards says he's been in Japan for 36 years. Okay. All right. We've all been, I mean, if you stay here longer than 20, 25 years, you've been, you know what's going on. We all know what's going on, for the better or for the worst. There's so much good to love about Japan. There are things to criticize about Japan. In that regard, my last big video that I did, the one where I said that I left and I came back, I think everybody could understand that I was showing respect for Japan in that video, and that I didn't mean any disrespect. But in the beginning, I had to set the stage, and I was talking about, yeah, I was here, and I started to hate that people were telling me, oh, you use chopsticks so well, and let me practice my English with you. Like I said, I was setting the stage. I had grown tired of that when I shouldn't have, is what I was trying to say, because everything is relative. But some Japanese people, some Japanese commenters took great exception to that. And they gave me a lot of not trouble, but they complained a lot in the comments to that video, saying, "Oh, you should appreciate when people are complimenting your chopstick skills and things like that, and you Americans are always complaining too much and blah blah blah." So you got to be really careful here on YouTube. There are not just Japanese people too. Some gaijins get on there and start complaining about some really weird stuff. Most of it I let fly, but some of it is just way out there. Okay. So I've been back to the USA for a visit in almost 20 years. Brownie points. There you go, Chris. You know, I used to do the same thing too. 20 years. I don't think I've ever been 20 years. I've been close to 20 years. When the I did come back to Japan, as I related in that video, I didn't go back to the United States for 10 years. And when I did finally go back, my family had moved from Chicago to Tucson, Arizona. And so it was like going to a foreign country. It was totally different. I remember the one thing I remember was when I wanted to get a Coke. I was thirsty. I was in Arizona, so it was so hot. You're always wanting to drink something. So I was in a motel, and I was wanting to get a Coke. So I thought, well, the last time I was here, Coke was whatever it was, 20 cents or 25 cents. So I think by now, I probably need about 50 cents to grab a can of Coke. So I went to the machine and I started looking around for a place to put coins and I couldn't find it. And finally I realized that a can of Coke cost $1. And I was really surprised. I thought, wow, $1 for a can of Coke. Wow, America's so expensive. And then I started thinking, well, at that time, a dollar was less than 100 yen. So yeah, it was pretty much the same in Japan. But when you've got your home country currency that you grew up with, and it's just a shock after a while. You okay, Chris? You officially have brownie points. Okay. I went back to the States in 2018 and it's completely different, just dirty, expensive, and I just wanted to come back home. Yep, I know the feeling, Edward. 2018, that's just about when I went. I went back and I think I lucked out by a lot. My dear mother was still alive, getting up there, but so my wife and I decided to go to the States and see mom, and we just picked up and went. And right after we got back to Japan, the COVID hit, and I was lucky I wasn't in the States when things were shut down by COVID. Otherwise, I probably would have been stuck there for a while, which would have been really, really horrible. Come to think of it now, but yeah, 2018. Maybe it was right around when I was there too. Okay. All right. So a little bit more about this about the news. Let's go into this one. This one, another one that I found interesting. For the story is just okay, this happened, okay, big deal. But I've got something to say about this. Some GSDF, that's Ground Self-Defense Forces officer, that's a Japanese military, has been arrested and sent to prosecutors over entry into the Chinese embassy in Tokyo. Now, this guy evidently broke into the Chinese embassy. And this is a 23-year-old second lieutenant in Japan's Ground Self-Defense Force was sent to the prosecutors Thursday for alleged unlawful entry into the Chinese embassy in Tokyo earlier this week. So this guy was initially detained by embassy staff, and there was a knife that was believed to be his, found in the bushes on the premises of the embassy. The Metropolitan Police Department has quoted the man, Murata, as telling investigators, "I tried to convey my opinions to the ambassador," implying he wanted China to refrain from criticizing Japan. He also said, "I was planning to surprise them by taking my own life if rebuffed." Yeah, I'm sure that would have surprised them. But this story, right after leaving camp about noon Monday and taking a highway bus and Shinkansen bullet train, Murata arrived in Tokyo and stayed overnight in an internet cafe, the sources said. He told investigators he bought a knife in a retail store in Tokyo, and evidently yeah, this guy was in a place, I don't remember where the base was. Yeah, Miyazaki Prefecture, that's down in Kyushu. Okay, Miyazaki. So this guy, just jumped on the train, came up to Tokyo, and decided to break into the Chinese embassy. Now, why am I interested in this? You know what this sounded like to me? I mean, it's almost it's not really comical. It's a serious incident. But this made me think about the way things were in Japan, like prior to World War II, or even during World War II, domestically inside of Japan, when the military started acting up a lot and becoming very political and very active politically. I mean, they would go to the dwelling of a prime minister or another lawmaker with whom they had a beef, and they would tell them, "Hey, you got to do what we want you to do." And if the lawmaker didn't comply with their wishes, they would kill him, shoot him, stab him, chop him with a sword or something like that. And so this made me think about that. Boy, I hope this isn't a sign of things to come. It seems like the Japanese nation is going more slightly towards a more militaristic bent. They're changing their laws about selling arms to other country. I think we had in the last live stream that I did on Saturday, there was a story about how one of their Aegis destroyers has been fitted. It's been modified so it can fire Tomahawk cruise missiles. Japan has purchased like 1,600 or 1,400 Tomahawk cruise missiles, each of which has a range of 1,600 kilometers. So Japan is definitely moving more towards a militaristic bent, for better or for worse. I personally feel that, of course, a country has to protect itself and its interests, and Japan would be making a mistake if they depended entirely upon the U.S. to secure its borders and to protect it against other countries. So, what do you guys think? I thought, like I said, I saw this, and it made me recall what was happening in Japan prior to and during World War II, when the military became very active in the domestic politics of Japan. Okay. Right. We got brownie points. Right. I went back to the state. Okay. Completely different country, isn't it? Sounds like one of those ultra nationalist guys who drive around in black buses blaring military music. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? And but a lot of those ultra nationalist guys driving around in black buses, blaring military music are, in my sent in my as far as I know, are like cosplaying military. They're really not military guys themselves. They want the military to do this, and we should do more of this and more of that. And but this guy was an actual military member. He's newly minted lieutenant in the self-defense forces. So I found it interesting and surprising. Okay, Rich says earthquake. Yeah, I did feel an earthquake here a little while ago. Luckily, it just came and went, so that's good. The second lieutenant sounds more like a Mishima. Yeah, Mishima Yukio, huh? If for those who don't know, Mishima Yukio was this guy. I don't think he was in the military. He was an author, but an ultra nationalist, and he was a real, you know, bodybuilding kind of guy. And he got in front of. It was down in Ichigaya, I think. There was some self-defense force headquarters there, and Mishima Yukio took over one part of it with his group of ultra nationalists, and he got out on the balcony there and addressed the troops. And he said, "We have to revolt against the government and save Japan from itself, or from the from these politicians and join me and pulling off a military coup. And the self-defense forces guys down below just sort of like looked at him and said, huh? What are you talking about? And nobody did anything. And so Mishima Yukio was so upset that he killed himself. He committed seppuku and had one of his lieutenants chop his head off and things like that. Quite a time in Japan. I think that was probably right when that kind of thing stopped happening that much in Japan. Until then, Japan had a lot of student uprisings and things like that. And I've mentioned this before. When I first came here from Chicago, and one of my first impressions of Japan when I first got here was, wow, what a violent place this is. And that's because there was a lot of political violence going on in Japan. Maybe, my impression was a little bit overblown, but still Japan was much feistier than it is these days. Tokyo Dan says, I'm starting to like the ultra-nationalists better than the globalist, open borders, pro-Islam types. Well, you've got a point there. And they're, if it is a binary choice, you do have a very good point there. But I hope that cooler heads prevail. I mean, that's what we all hope for, isn't it? Okay. The pendulum swings, right? The pendulum swings, and we just hope that when it starts swinging past the center point and going in the other direction, that it doesn't get too far before things get out of hand. Okay. All right, we'll go past this. Like I said, the thing that struck me about this, it was reminiscent of pre-war Japan. All right. Oh, here we go. I don't know how many of you are looking at this. I'm asked by Japanese people sometimes after they know how long I've been here and things like that. They say, oh, don't you have Japanese citizenship? And I always say no. And I've never felt the need to take Japanese citizenship, though I know people who have, and I don't criticize them for it, and I don't think that they're wrong for doing it. But me personally, I've always felt like I needed an escape route if something started going bad or going wrong. Japan geographically is located near China and near North Korea, two quite hostile countries who do not have Japan's best interests in mind, shall we say. And so what if something happened in that regard? Or what if there was such a monumental earthquake in Japan that the country was just totally devastated? What would I do then? Would it be up to me to suffer along with everybody and rebuild it, or would it be better for me to get on an airplane and get the heck out of here? That's always been a question in my mind. If you've got an opinion, let me know. If you've taken Japanese nationality, let me know. That would be interesting to know how people feel about this. But anyway, in this regard, getting Japanese nationality will become a little bit harder. This year's new law means that foreigners now have to meet significantly higher requirements to acquire Japanese citizenship. Up until the end of May, the baseline minimum requirements for foreigners applying for naturalizations has lived in Japan for at least 5 years, has made at least 1 year of tax payments, has made at least 1 year of social insurance payments. And under the new system, the residency requirement has now doubled to 10 years, and they have doubled the period of social insurance payments, which is now 2 years instead of 1 year. 2 years is not that long, though, is it? Even though it's doubled. 1 year sounds a little bit short. And the largest proportional increases for tax payments because it is now 5 years of tax payments instead of 1 year. Okay, that has gone up 5 times, but even 5 years. I mean, if you're going to take Japanese citizenship um, from 5 years to 10 years, okay, that can be discussed. But you have to show that you paid taxes for at least 5 years. That sounds pretty reasonable, don't you think? Um, here's a cheeky caption here. At least Japan has some festively colored tax documents. Okay. All right. And the difference with the tax payment, again, applicants will need to spend half a decade working as adult members of Japanese society before satisfying that point. Okay, why not? I mean, this seemed to make to say that this change was pretty shocking, but I think that the previous requirements were too easy, in my opinion. Then they say that they watered it down a little bit. This is as far as the residency. It went from 5 years to 10 years. And it notes here the new rules include the vague clause that the residency requirements is 10 years in principle. Now, this is a typical Japanese thing. It's a Japanese out. They say 10 years in principle, which means that exceptions could be allowed. And again, it's probably up to the discretion of the immigration authorities when you apply. But there you go. Those are the new requirements. When I read this, I thought it's not that bad, is it? What do you think? Let's hear it. Throw it out on the to the table here. Okay. I doubt the 10-year requirement is a problem for you. No, it's not a problem for me. But like I said, though, is there an upside to taking Japanese nationality? That's always been the question in the back of my mind. One of my sons has taken Japanese nationality, and one of my sons hasn't taken Japanese nationality. And the only difference is the son who has taken that Japanese nationality has kanji for his name and things like that. I guess he no longer has to deal with the American government, which is definitely a plus, about having to file taxes and things like that. But that's another thing that, in case you didn't know, if you're American, that if you take Japanese nationality, of course, you have to renounce your American nationality. That's a requirement imposed by the Japanese government. And to renounce your American nationality, you have to pay a whole lot of money, tons of money. I mean, was it over $1,000 or thousands of dollars? I don't remember which, but it's quite a significant amount of money that you have to do, that you have to pay. Okay, Kelvin says, I think it's totally reasonable. Yep, you and me both, Kevin. And he says, I wish it were that way over here. There you go. Yeah, Americans have a totally different view about nationality than Japanese. And it seems like it's more than the nationality thing in America. It's getting into the country. It's quite different. Getting into Japan, I think, is more restrictive than it is in the United States. And some people may feel, well, it should be more like it is in the United States. Watch out what you wish for. Okay. And Kelvin says it's called an exit tax. Yes, it is an exit tax, and it is heavy. I think it's harder to get permanent residence. Yeah, it was harder to get permanent residence. Yeah, it sure seems that way, doesn't it? Permanent residence, we haven't heard any details on that front yet, and I think most of us who are here are more interested in hearing about the permanent residence changes, and I know I am. I just hope that they don't do something where you have to pay a lot of money to renew, to not to renew, but to extend your permanent residence or something like that. But we'll see. We shall see what we shall see. What about? I wonder. Anybody here naturalized Japanese? I doubt it. I would imagine that once somebody became a naturalized Japanese, they would feel like, well, I don't have to go to. I'm not going to go listen to that kind of podcast or live stream anymore because now I'm Japanese. I'm not one of those gaijins anymore. So I'm a Naijin. I don't know. I wonder how things change for you. Let's say a person who looks like me goes out and gets to be a naturalized Japanese, and I'm out and about running around town. Is that going to change anything for me? People are going to look at me and they're going to say, "Oh no, this guy's a Japanese." I don't think so. They're still going to look at me and say, "Oh, gaijin da." Oh yeah, I experienced something. Actually, this is the first time that this happened to me. Talking about looking at somebody and thinking, "Oh, gaijin." I had to go into Akasaka the other day, and in order to do that, since it was on a Sunday and the trains, how you make train connections change, because some trains don't stop at certain spots. I won't go into details, but anyway, I took a train to to one station, changed to a local train, changed again to a subway, and then went into Akasaka Mitsuke. And I'd say that the ride took, let's say, an hour. And in most of the trains, I was able to get a seat. And for the entire ride on this train, the seat next to me was open. Nobody sat down. There were people around standing, but nobody sat down next to me. And I took a bath and I washed my hair and brushed my teeth. So I don't think it was anything like that. But that was the first time that ever, there were times, of course, when some people didn't sit down, but eventually somebody would sit down during a train ride. But this was the first time that I spent the whole ride on a train when nobody sat down next to me and there were people standing. And I felt more amused than anything else. But it, if I had taken Japanese nationality, would they have sat down next to me? I wonder. Okay. Not opposed to naturalization. However, I have to give up my original citizenship, and then I'd have to carry ID to prove citizenship, like carrying an internal passport in the old Soviet Union. Yeah, that's right, Richard. Yeah, what's the difference between carrying your ID proof of citizenship and carrying your gaijin card? I mean, it's almost the same thing, isn't it? Like I said, the only advantage would be not having to deal with the American infernal revenue system. Okay. The cost of renouncing U.S. nationality was about $3,000, but they just reduced it to under $500. Seem still ridiculous if you ask me. Oh, they reduced it. Oh, wow. I mean, that's impressive. I don't think I've ever heard of a government reducing the cost of anything. But it's good that if they did, it's good that they did. Maybe that's it. They've got so many illegals coming in that they're making it easier for citizens to renounce their citizenship. I guess it's one way. Treat it at the other end of the pipeline. Okay. The Gaijin seat, Shred Edwards says. I've asked my students about that, and they said they are afraid they would be asked something in English. All right. I mean, I could almost understand that. All right. afraid, David asked. I read a story one time about a guy in the United States, and actually it was a black guy, and he was upset about some people not sitting next to them on the train or something like that. And he mentioned it to his father, and his wise old father said, "Well, I don't care if somebody doesn't sit next to me, but if they tell me that I have to change to another seat, then they got trouble." And I always thought, yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. I kind of like, I told my wife about it, and I said, yeah, I spent the whole time on the train and nobody sat down next to me. And she said, "Ine," which is like, lucky you, right? So you could just sort of sit there and didn't have to worry about somebody sitting next to you, which I thought was pretty comical too. Okay, I always found that certain folks, I won't say what we call them, weebs, would always say, when I become Japanese, it was like, "You mean Japanese citizen?" They were like, "No, Japanese." Yeah, okay. So you're going to change your DNA? Yeah, that's it. I mean, how are you gonna change? You're never gonna become Japanese. You're always gonna be a gaijin, no matter what your citizenship papers say, because gaijin is an outsider. Now, I have a couple of stories in that regard. Maybe I ought to save this for a video, but I'll let you know first. And if you see it as a video, please watch the video anyway, so I could get those views. But anyway, the first story is my wife's neighborhood where she's from, and she's from Fukuoka, but the outside of Fukuoka, in a place called Yanagawa. And Yanagawa is that place that you sometimes see on YouTube, where those guys are on those boats, those river boats that are, and they come to an underpass, and the people have to, and the guy, gets up and he walks over the bridge and then jumps back down on the boat. That's Yanagawa. But that's where she's from, and she's from outside of that city. And so it's a very, very rural and very, very, village kind of place. A lot of the people in the neighborhood have the same last name. And so there is some family who moved into that neighborhood like 25 years ago. And they were from outside, and they moved, they bought a house or something, like, I don't know, they acquired a house somehow, and they decided to make a home there. And they're still living there. And like I said, they've been living there for 25 years. And they're still referred to as the outsiders by the local people. Um, Yosomono, and they're referred to as the outsiders, and they are Japanese. So it's not just gaijins. And there's another story that I read one time, and this was about people who had attended some kind of like a junior college or training program for hospitality workers, hotel workers, and they learned how to work in a hotel. And then after they graduated, these people at that particular time, they were from Tokyo, but they wanted to get out of Tokyo. They admired the outside, the rural life of Japan. So they said, "Yeah, I want to get a job out in the hinterland, up in Hokkaido or in Tohoku, where we don't have the stresses of modern day life, lies in Tokyo." And so that's what they did. And they got a job out in the rural areas of Japan. And according to the story, they had a hard time finding a place to live because the locals wouldn't rent to them because they were outsiders, basically gaijin. I mean, they weren't called gaijin. There's another word that they used, but it was the same principle. They weren't local people, so they were looked upon with suspicion. At that time, the article said that the locals were afraid that somebody from outside the village would be a Om Shinrikyo, a member, these people who did the nerve gas thing in Tokyo. They were afraid. Well, what if this person is one of these wackos from that religion? So they had a hard time finding a place to live because the people didn't trust outsiders. So it's not just we Hakujin, or foreigners, meaning from another country. They're people from another area also get the same treatment. Tokyo Dano says a lot of woke types think changing DNA is possible. Just ask them, what is a woman? Well, I don't want to get into that, but you were right. Changing DNA is possible. Good luck. Maybe someday. Who knows? I don't know. Who would want to do that? I found that Japanese are increasingly nice to me since the recent Nippon Fasuto political stuff. Nippon first, Japan first political stuff. I see the news just like you, and people get worried, and these new political parties talking the way they do, and the stuff that's in the news, and especially in this news cycle kind of, short news cycle world that we live in. But I've always found that the normal, everyday Japanese people pretty much act the same way, and they're pretty much, pretty much are nice. I think there are even some Japanese people that want to show gaijins that they are not one of those people, and they go out of their way to be. I have good Japanese friends, and I joke with them. If something happens, or if I do something, I make a mistake, and they say, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I'll make a joke. I will say something like, "Oh, gaijin yada," and everybody has a laugh. I mean, what let's not get too upset about it. Like I said, the normal everyday life Japanese people that I have contact with are nice, and they haven't changed much at all. Okay, the seat thing is one thing, but I'm not going to make a big deal out of that. Of course, there are bad people. I'm sure there are horrible people that would want to see the back of me, as they say. But hey, I'm not going to worry about them until they start marching me to the airport at the point of a gun or a bayonet. Okay. Good point, Fred Edward. All right. After I got my permanent residence, small children would say gaijin. I'd say no. They'd say Nihonjin, and I'd say no, I'm Naijin. And they usually laughed and thought that was cool. Yeah, kids are pretty cool. They'll say some things sometime, not knowing actually what they're saying, and if you engage with them, you can become pretty good friends with them. Yeah. Nihonjin, Naijin, Ninjin, you could do uh, all kinds of great things, great humor you can get out of kids, right? What is Fasto? I mean, maybe first. Okay, I imagine. Yeah, that is what it is. Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah. But Japan first. Uh, American first. America first. I mean, if I live in a country, I would hope that the leader would want to put my country first. I mean, what would you like a national leader to say? Well, we're not going to put Japan first anymore. We're going to put it maybe fifth or sixth. I don't know. I think putting the country you're leading first is the normal position, isn't it? Okay. I don't know. Does that make me a redneck? All right. On X, Twitter, a lot of right-wing nationalists like the gaijins who support them in keeping Japan and not letting it be overrun by certain foreign types. Well, sure. I mean, sure. That's common sense too, isn't it? You like people who are lined up with your way of thinking. And as far as keeping Japan, Japan, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And even if they wanted to kick all of us gaijins out, I guess they would have the the right to do that. If what I hope they don't. It would be a bummer if they did, wouldn't it? But if you grow up in a place and you live in a place and you're comfortable in a place, would you want a bunch of people coming in and trying to change it or telling you what to do? I mean, there's nothing wrong with foreigners being anywhere, but when they start getting too feisty with their opinions, I think that's when the trouble starts. But anyway, Japan has uh, tightened up their requirements for foreigners applying for citizenship, but I really don't think it's that big of a deal. Okay. All right. There's another change in the law that's coming up. Let's take a look at this one. I know that some people feel very strongly about this. I've seen this in some of the comments that we had. Which one was it? Whenever there's a discussion about Japan being a good place or a fair place or something like that, there are always comments that come in about people talking about these child custody laws or rules or regulations of Japan. And I guess until now, like if there's been a divorce of a Japanese person and a foreign person, it was very easy for the Japanese person to grab the kids, take them to Japan, and totally cut off any contact with the foreign spouse. And a lot of people feel very strongly about that, of course, because it's a very emotional thing. And wasn't there a French guy some time ago? It was during the Tokyo Olympics who did a hunger strike, and he was in this train station because his wife wouldn't let him see their children or something like that. And it's been an issue for a long time. And this was always caused by a very old law, like from 1946 or 1947, that controlled this kind of thing, what happens to the kids after divorce. But for those who are affected by this, luckily not me, there has been a change in the joint custody after divorce, and it is going into effect with this new business year. Let's look at it. A revised law in Japan. Let me get rid of my face here. Allowing joint parental custody after divorce went into effect Wednesday with the aim of enabling both parents to play a role in child rearing amid increasingly diverse family dynamics. The first change in the law in parental custody since 1947, Japan's civil code allows divorced parents to choose either sole or joint custody, a shift from the current system that allows custody by only one parent. The new law can also apply retroactively to those who have already divorced. So people who are suffering under the previous 1947 law, where the one parent would grab the kids and just cut off contact with the other parent, they will now be able to claim joint custody. Now, the revision also introduces new measures against unpaid child support, including provisional payments of 20,000 yen per month per child if no agreement is reached upon divorce. Parents will generally decide between themselves whether to opt for sole or joint custody, but if there is a dispute, a family court intervenes and determines custody arrangements. Under joint custody, both parents must generally reach agreement on important matters, but this is not required for day-to-day matters such as meals and extracurricular activities or in emergencies. To address the growing issue of unpaid child support, the revision also introduces a statutory lien that allows a parent to seize the other parent's assets with priority over other creditors, even without family court mediation. The amount is capped at 80,000 yen per month per child. Okay, like I said, for those who are suffering under the current system, this may be good news. Luckily, this doesn't affect me at all. But if there are those out there who would like to chime in on this, now's your chance. Put it up in the comments of the different videos that I've done. So, okay, Mr. Chuckles. Hey, good name. The new joint custody law is long overdue. Thank you, Mr. Chuckles, and welcome to the channel. Welcome to the live stream. And yeah, I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. The problem will always be that the cops won't enforce it. There is always that question, and we'll see. I mean, I guess it's possible that they'll never enforce it. They have not enforced other laws in the past, but we'll see with this. Let's give them a chance to see what happens. Okay, we have some anecdotal experience. As an American expat, I was surprised when, after a divorce, the husband was pretty much out of the picture, not even seeing his kids on weekends or similar arrangements. Yes, that's true. And I've seen that many a time. Like I said, it's been mentioned in the comments, and I've seen news stories. I've seen stories where the wife has like grabbed the kids in the United States, taken the kids to Japan, and cutting off all contact with the father, and the father having no legal recourse to fall back upon to get into contact with his kids. And there have been sad stories of the father locating his ex-wife and kids in Japan, and then the father grabbing the kids and taking them back to the States, and that kind of seesaw thing. So it's a pretty sad situation where the kids are used as pawns between the parents, which unfortunately does happen. And it even happens when, I guess, in the United States, when there are two Americans fighting over custody. I know of that, of some family members who had that. This shared custody is really nice, but when it's the handoff of the kids between the parents is when a lot of trouble starts. Fights and all kinds of stuff. So Richard says, once when I took my child to the States, U.S. immigration suspected me of parental child abduction. I wondered why the U.S. was strictly enforcing this legality while Japan shielded such parents. Good question. Like I said, I don't know anything about that. Parental child abduction. What a term that is. What a concept. Parental child abduction. How can you abduct your own child? That seems like one of these new age words that sound really cool and official, but don't make much sense at all, doesn't it? But anyway, I'd like to know more about that. Did they stop you? I mean, when you said suspected you of parental child abduction, how was it resolved? That's really interesting. Okay. Perhaps it's cultural more than a legal issue for Japanese national marriages, but loggerheads in dual cultural marriages. Yeah, yeah. I've seen plenty of Japanese national marriages, and I shouldn't say plenty. I've seen some Japanese national marriages where they split up and the guy just, bye, and never has much to do with his family again, including child support, which makes it really hard for the female. Excuse me, I'm having a little bit of a problem here. Let me grab a tissue and try to get rid of it for good. This weather is a little bit it's shifting between hot and cold, and it's hard to keep healthy here. But yeah, maybe it's more of a cultural than legal issue in the Japanese marriages. But it seems, I don't know. It always seems strange to me the way Japan handled that when there would be one parent wanting to have contact with their children, and the Japanese government would not cooperate at all. But like I said, it doesn't affect me, so I don't know what it would, and it will never affect me because my kids are grown and having their own family. But I hope it never affects any of you. And those of you who have been affected, I hope that this new law will help to make things better for you. Okay. Any other? All right. We seem to have talked this one. Next one. And this is again, is we were talking about the military, Japanese military. Sorry, we got another custody. Sometimes there's a lag in these comments, so I don't want to move ahead before something is. One problem with child custody is the concept of chonan, first son priority in inheritance. Yes, yes. In fact, there is a lot of weird inheritance laws in Japan. If you want, we could talk about that for a while. I know of one in particular firsthand. This gaijin friend of mine had a house down in Fukuoka. He and his wife, of course, were married, but they didn't have any children. And he had a sister in the United States. And he suddenly passed away, and he didn't have a will or anything like that. And when he passed away, you would expect that his wife takes possession of the house. I mean, she is his wife, and they did own it together. But apparently, under Japanese law, and I'm not a lawyer, this is just what I've heard from people who were handling this case. Apparently, under Japanese law, the sister had a claim to part of the house. Now, the house was quite large, even though there were only two of them living there. And the wife wanted to sell the house, move into a smaller place, and live off of any of the proceeds that she got from the house. But like I said, the sister had some kind of claim to the house. So they wrote the sister a number of times saying, "Hey, this is the situation. Please write this document where you renounce your claim, so your sister-in-law can sell the house and get the proceeds." And the sister just never answered. Why? Nobody knows, because she never answered. Plus, she just never took any action to satisfy what needed to be done to renounce her claim on the house. And as far as I know, it's still outstanding. They can't sell the house unless they settle the situation with the sister. So if you have kids and you have assets, please protect your survivors. Write a will. If this guy had a will, all of this could have been avoided. Even if you feel, I'm still healthy, I don't need a will. Well, you never know. You could go walk out on the street and get hit by a scooter or something like that. So protect your survivors. Write a will, and keep things. Because there are plenty of stories here where even the chonan, right? Somebody dies, they leave assets, there's no will, and everybody starts suing everybody and ends up hating each other. So write a will. Poof, disappeared. Yeah, I've seen a lot of that too. I've lived here since 1986, by the way. I love your channel because it's rare to find a fellow American senpai. Hey, way to go. 1986. Yeah, you've been here. You came here during the bubble. Way to go. And yeah, Okay, I'm glad to have you here, and I hope you continue with us. All right. They held us at the airport for about an hour. Wow. They said I should have a letter from the mother acknowledging I am traveling alone with my child. Who would have thought of I would never have thought of that. You know, you get on an airplane with your kid and you go somewhere. What a strange system we have. And like you said, why is American immigration enforcing strange Japanese law? Very good point. My wife was an American, I'm Canadian, and whenever one of us were traveling across any international border, we would always give each other an approval letter to travel alone with one parent. That's interesting. Okay. I didn't know that. Good to know. It's really good to know, isn't it? So I don't those of you who have this kind of arrangement, I guess even if you're still married, it's better to have a an approval letter. And maybe it's good to look into that online. Maybe we can do something on that approval letter. Okay, good to know. Learn something new every day. Now, it's a problem now in the States with some states allowing bing bong, allowing gender reassignment surgery, while others do not. There you go. There you go. There's the crux of it. And it's sad that such things have to affect all of us. And that's one of the great things about the United States. Every state can do what they want in certain regards. And one of the bad points in the United States that every state can do something in that regard. I never thought of that. It never occurred to me. This approval letter thing never occurred to me. And this reason why never occurred to me, but now I know. Thank you. Thank you for letting us know about this. And property laws are similar in Canada and the USA. You have to have any property go through probate before you have the right to sell it. Okay. Probate. Yeah. I guess things are more similar than we realize. And probate is a thing, and selling property. Yeah, real estate, I guess, is a lot trickier than what we realize. So, like I said, though, if you want to avoid all that, write a will. Make sure all the paperwork is in order, especially if you have an international situation. We discovered that it was necessary. My wife and I had no idea that it would be necessary. Good. And now we all know about it being necessary. Thank you for letting us know there, Mr. Richard, okay, and Mr. Chuckles. Okay. Nobody in Japan, travel agents, airlines ever told us. Yeah, okay. Maybe, maybe Japanese people don't think about things like that. You never know. Hey, Japan is a Heiwa place. What do they call that? Heiwa Boke? All right. You learn as you go. Yeah. And we're never to learn. And here. Yeah. Hear from me too. Okay. And now we all know. So let's keep it. Maybe I ought to do a video on that. I hate to do a video on such a topic like that because I'm sure there would be something I would get wrong and hear about it. Now, in Japan, you must register your will with the courts for it to be valid. Yes, that's true. Get your paperwork in order. What I meant by that, thank you for reminding me, Richard, is that it has to be, make sure that it's official, not just something written on the back of a cocktail napkin or something like that. It has to be registered with the courts. It has to be official, and there is a way to do it. And there is a way to what do they say, that CYA, cover your assets and make sure that everything is going in the direction that you want it to go. Don't sit there and say, "Oh yeah, my kids are cool. They'll, my relatives, my survivors are all cool, and they'll work everything out." They don't. Take it from me. I've seen many a family fall apart over assets. Okay, Kelvin says, everyone I need to check out, but big day tomorrow with the Atremis 2 launch. I have to get up at 2 a.m. and head into work. Everyone have a great day with you. Okay. Thank you, Kelvin. It's always good to have you here, and you'll be hearing from me soon about that thing that we talked about. Good luck on the launch. I hope that everything goes well for you. All right. Kansai Box says a SIPR will can be created at the Judicial Scrivener's Office. Yes, that's true. But as long as it's, it can be simple, but um, it's got to be official. In Japan, it's got to have all the fancy red seals on that. I'm just saying that as a half humorous. I don't know what it takes. I haven't done it yet myself, but it's something that's always in the back of my mind. Not that I plan on checking out anytime soon, but you never know. So, okay. Thank you for letting us know there, Kansai Boxer. 50 years in Japan means 1976. I would love more stories about how it was back then. Well, Edward, notice the plus at the end of 50. I got here in 1969, a whole different Japan. I've got some videos up on the channel about what was going on back then, about what it was like when I first got here. Yeah, I, I I like to do those kind of stories too, but it's mostly talking about me and what I experienced, and I always wonder if those are of interest. I will do more of those in the future. The whole concept of probate is that court validates any claims on an estate. Yep. Okay. Good. Thank you. And it's probably a good system. Okay. They do that at the office. Okay. And I guess you mean the the scrivener's office. Okay. Especially, yeah. I guess I don't know if wills have to go through probate in the US or Canada, or how wills, an official will, is handled in Japan, even. I don't know that either. But I have heard that if you do have a will, it makes things much, much easier. Okay, let's go to another news story, one that I found interesting. Ready? Now, this is one that I don't know how valid this is, because this is a Chinese news site source. Let me increase the size of that a little bit. Okay. According to the PLA Daily, which is a Chinese daily, Chinese military mouthpiece, which is the PLA, claims that Tokyo has an astonishing stockpile of nuclear materials and the tech to produce weapons. Now, this comes from the China Morning Post out of Hong Kong. So take this as for what it's worth. You can make your own decisions on that. And China's military mouthpiece has accused Japan of dangerously expanding its defense industry in capacity, technology, and international engagement, and has said that Japan has crossed the red line. Now, could be true, or it could just be, propagandizing in order for China to take Japan to task again, which has been going on quite a bit these days. Now, the PLA Daily claimed that Japan possesses an astonishing stockpile of nuclear materials and that it had the technology to produce nuclear weapons. It said 44.4 tons of plutonium has already been separated by the end of 2024, and that's enough apparently to make about 5,500 nuclear warheads. The report warned that once Japan has fully broken free from the constraints of the three non-nuclear principles, that it will not possess, produce, or allow the introduction of nuclear weapons. Those are the three non-nuclear principles. It could become a de facto nuclear armed state in an extremely short period of time. It said Japan had worked systematically to cultivate its defense industry under the cover of civilian technology, and that it had laid the groundwork for a strategic shift in defense policy and unleashing its military industrial potential. Okay, and it goes on from there. I don't have the app, so I won't go on from there. What do you think of this claim, first of all? And is it good that Japan is in this position, if it's true, or is it bad? I have always said that I assume that Japan does one of these two-room nuclear weapon kind of stances. That is, they have a nuclear capability with half of it in one room and half of it in a neighboring room, which gives it plausible deniability. And that in the case of emergency, they just bring these two pieces together and they are nuclear capable. I don't know if that's true. That is totally a figment of my imagination, but it would surprise me if it weren't true. But it's just like I said, this is what I think. All right. So what do you think? Let me go back to my talking head thing. It's true. Japan does have a lot of plutonium stored. They originally planned to operate a breeder reactor, but have not. You just can't get rid of plutonium. Yeah, so I guess they'll have to figure out what to do with it. Do you think they'll use it for military purposes? Okay. Greg said, true, but anyone can still, okay, we're talking about wills here, to contest the will, in which case legal action may be necessary anyway. All right. With American bases all over the place, everybody can assume there are nukes. Yeah, that happened with the military, the Navy some time ago. Well, quite a while ago, come to think of it. There was once a belief or an assumption or it was never explicitly said, but never denied. So it was assumed that it was a fact that the American Navy didn't bring nuclear weapons into Japan when they called on Japanese ports. And the United States always said, well, we don't comment on what our capabilities are or are not at any given time, which was a good mealy-mouthed way of avoiding the question. And the Japanese government always said, well, we assume that the Americans never bring nuclear weapons into Japan, and just left it at that. And it was left at that for many, many years. And then one day it was discovered that the American Navy was indeed bringing nuclear weapons into Japan. And it was just, glossed over or ignored or not mentioned or something like that. So I think everybody assumes that the American Navy is bringing nuclear weapons into Japan, but it's not talked about that much as it was in the past. U.S. policy, neither confirm or deny the location of any nuclear weapons on every given vessel. Yes, that's true. That is true. But like I said, once it was, I don't know, there was something that went on that it became obvious that the Navy was bringing nuclear weapons into Japan, and then it was just glossed over. The discussion disappeared. I should look into that in more detail and see, and I should do a report on that because it was a pretty interesting thing, and hence the need for a good lawyer. Yeah, they were talking about probate. Yeah, I guess in probate anybody can challenge, especially in the United States. I guess you could take a legal challenge about anything. They say you can indict a ham sandwich. I guess you can challenge a ham sandwich in court too, if that's what you wanted to do. So you always need a good lawyer over in North America. Okay, so back to this nuclear thing. What do you think? You think Japan has nuclear weapons hidden away somewhere, or like the two-room thing? My personal opinion is they'd be nuts if they didn't in this area where they live. Otherwise, they would always be at the mercy of China and or North Korea, and they would have to always rely upon the United States for their protection against those two nuclear powers. And what do you think? You think it's good to rely upon the United States? I mean, the United States as a country, to rely upon the United States as a country, okay, is okay. But can you rely upon every upcoming United States president coming down the pike into the future? I think we've seen at times in the past, that some American presidents are less reliable than others as far as coming to the defense of allies. And at the strategic decisions made in the United States are made based upon the needs and the best interests of the United States at that time. So treaties have gone out the window when it is expedient for the United States. I'm trying to be nice, but you know what I'm saying. But I'm showing my wall. Why do you have two calendars on the wall? Well, if you're interested, I'll show you. Because this calendar, two calendars, shows 2 months. It's a 2-month calendar, and this is March, and March is already finished. So what I'll do is I will flip this one upwards. Oh, come on, man. You know, when you're trying to show how great and efficient your system is. And now I have April and May. So I can keep track of 2 months of upcoming things at a glance. And for me, you know, I don't know what it is with me, but I'm really poor about dates, numbered dates. 1st of March, you know, they just don't. But I'm really good at days of the week, you know. Next Wednesday, okay, I can remember it. I've got all that. I've got an image of that in my head that works really well. But it doesn't work very well. I don't work very well with future dates, so I need a calendar like this. Okay? All right, that's it. And it would be a logistic and security nightmare to move nuclear weapons on and off ships due to Japanese restrictions. Yes. And I think Japan could easily arm itself if it had to do so. Yes, and I agree with you in both regards, as I have already said. Yeah, I mean, and I think that when it was discovered that the United States Navy was indeed carrying nuclear armaments into Japanese ports, I think that basically the collective Japan mind understood that kind of logic and just kind of shrugged it off. Of course, there are people who make it their business to protest such things and make such things an issue, and they did make this an issue, but eventually it quieted down. Okay, now you know. Okay, I seriously doubt that Japan has nuclear weapons of its own. Building and maintaining nukes is very expensive. Japan relies on the US. Japan could build nukes in a few months if needed. Okay, Rich, you may be right. I don't know what it costs to build and maintain nukes, to tell you the truth. It was just, like I said, a figment of my imagination, what I was relating before. They could build nukes in a few months if needed. Okay, maybe. I don't know. Makes me wonder, though. I just thought of something. Japan could build nukes within a few months if needed. If the United States and some of its allies felt that they were allowed or able to bomb Iran in order to keep it from going nuclear, wouldn't that suggest that Beijing or Pyongyang could come up, could use that as a rationale to bomb Japan to keep it from going nuclear? Whoa. What kind of Pandora box have they opened up? Okay, Dano says he has a 3-month calendar. Yeah, I've thought about that too. Yeah, every time I go buy a new 2-month calendar, I start thinking, yeah, maybe I need a 3-month calendar. I don't know. I've never seen that kind of calendar. I just use the calendars we are given at the end of the year. Yeah, you get a lot of calendars from here and there at the end of the year. Yeah, it's always not. I always like to see what's coming up the following month. Japan can sign the non-proliferation treaty, but still keep their nukes, just like all the other countries with nukes. Japan owning nuclear weapons is a positive game changer with adversaries. Yeah, I mean, it gives Japan a position of power to talk some smack to its neighbors, among other things. Yeah, you're true. That's true. I agree. Okay. All right. Yeah, it's a serious problem. What's going to happen? Well, I guess we will see in the future. China is sure giving Japan a lot of flack about a lot of different things, though, aren't they? They're really getting excited about the Japanese government and things and the directions that Japan is going about selling nuclear, or not nuclear, but military technologies to its neighbors. But I think China will give flack to Japan no matter what it does. All right. I've got another one, a little bit more humorous to take us off these heavier. Yeah, Tokyo Dano says Shred Edward, Tokyo Dano says, if you are in Japan, you can go to any big bookstore towards November, December, and they have all kinds. Yeah, they have tons of calendars. And they're getting more and more expensive every day. And every calendar has a number. That's why I can get the same calendar every year. It's got a little serial number, and it's even got a perforation where you can rip off the calendar number and take the number to the bookstore, and you can get the same calendar year after year. Doctors in Japan all have 3-month calendars because they can prescribe 90 days ahead for prescriptions. There you go. Yeah. I like to use, all right, the reason I use a 2-month calendar is, number one, because of band business, I can see what kind of gigs are coming up, and I have to keep an eye on that because there are certain logistical processes and duties that I have to perform coming up to a gig, and that's one thing. And also, I even put in when I have to do my live streams. But okay, yeah, but I only use Daihatsu because I love my K truck and I don't need to see 2 months at the same time. Yeah, that's good enough. if you're not doing things that you need to see 2 or 3 months at a time, yeah, a 1 month calendar is just as good. My wife in the kitchen, where I have another calendar that's only a 1 month calendar. And I asked my wife, you want me to get a 2 month calendar for our kitchen too? And she always says, nope, don't need it. And I bow and leave, leave, leave the kitchen. That's her territory. And Dan says, what does Daihatsu have to do with it? Well, I imagine that Daihatsu is his dealer and they give him a calendar every year. And it's got little squares in them that you can fill in. That's probably it, I would imagine. Okay. Banks give out calendars. All kinds of people give out calendars at the end of the year, the beginning of the year. Okay. I've got another, one more story here in the docket that is a little bit lighter hearted. It's one of those, and it comes from, it comes from one of my favorite places in Japan, Fukuoka, which is, I think I mentioned this a number of times. Fukuoka is my Japanese hometown. I've got a place in my heart for Fukuoka all the time. And here, a Fukuoka teacher was accused of groping an undercover police officer on the train. Now, there are always stories like this, and there are always groping stories. And I don't know if groping is a thing in other countries, but evidently, it's a thing. I don't say thing, but it happens in Japan quite a bit. I imagine it happens in other countries too. But this country, I didn't select this topic because it was groping or even that it was in Fukuoka, but the whole story. Let's look at some of the context of the story. It's pretty interesting. A 44-year-old junior high school teacher was arrested on suspicion of groping a woman on a crowded morning commuter train in Fukuoka Prefecture on Monday. Now, these kind of stories are very popular, especially when it's a junior high school teacher or when it's a city office worker or a policeman or a self-defense forces member. These people that have some privileged area in society who grope a woman or put a camera in a toilet or something like that. These seem to be big news items in Japan. They like to report on these because they think that these people shouldn't be doing this kind of thing. Even though, as we all know, that just because you've got a title next to your name, it doesn't make you any less of a creep. But this guy's sitting there, enjoying his Monday morning grope. And all of a sudden, he finds out that the woman, the gropee, is an undercover police officer. Wow, that must be, talk about a sinking feeling in your stomach. Here's this guy, let's see what he was doing. He denied the allegations, of course, telling investigators, I have no recollection of pressing my crotch against the woman. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if there's anything that has to do with my crotch area, I recollect it. I have a pretty strong recollection of where my crotch has been and where it is now, for that matter. So there was this 33-year-old female police officer dressed in plain clothes and assigned to an anti-groping patrol. That makes it even worse. Like she wasn't on her way to work or something like that. She was actually a member of an anti-groping patrol, and this guy groped her. What a jerk. Oh, of course, he didn't know. But she was standing in this packed carriage when she felt a sudden pressure from behind. For approximately 7 minutes, I wonder who timed it, this guy allegedly maintained an unnatural posture with bent knees so that he could continuously press his lower body against the female officer's buttocks. Now, when the train arrived at Yakuin Station, which is out on the Nishitetsu line, the suspect disembarked and the officer followed him, called out to him, and arrested him. Think about how that must feel. You're on this train and you're sitting there going, oh, oh man, you're in creepo heaven there for a short while, 7 minutes to be exact. And you've gotten your jollies and you get off the train and say, I'm off to school. And all of a sudden, on your wrist, hey, Buster, you just groped a cop and you are under. Think of how that must feel. Have you ever had anything like that happen? Of course, I'm joking. Surely you haven't. But how that must feel. Okay. And so Dan says, all right. Okay. I'm having trouble with my okay. Sometimes my mouse pointer rolls over something and something strange appears. Okay, and Shred Edwards says, yeah, this happens all over Japan. I remember a situation where an elementary teacher was conducting a study on breast sizes, and you can imagine how this was tested. Yeah, I imagine it was a tactile test, Yeah, and it makes you wonder, if I was a teacher, if I was a pervy teacher, I would at least try to satisfy my pervy tendencies outside the working place. So, this is, use your head, dude. There was another story that I ran across when I was looking for this week's stories. I didn't include it because it was not that surprising or interesting, and it was in an elementary school. Two teachers, a male and a female, were caught in a school supplies rooms doing the dirty by some kind of superior who was making the rounds and heard certain noises being emitted from the school supplies room and went in there, and the male teacher ran out, like pulling up his, and he went in there and there was the female teacher trying to fix her disheveled clothing. And then they found out that these two had sort of like made the rounds of the entire school, which I thought was funny. But I mean, use your head. You don't have to do it at work. Don't you do have a job. You can afford a love hotel, can't you? Okay. Richard says he pressed her from behind. How did she know all of these details about the posture and so on? I don't know. Maybe he was, like hunched down over her. I don't know. Or maybe there were other witnesses or things like that. You or if the guy was relatively tall and he wanted to press the genital area that he forgot about, or his lower body that he forgot about, he would have to, I guess, scrunch down. I don't know. I'm speculating. I guess we should be using allegedly before all of these things, because we all know that people are presumed ignorant, not ignorant, but innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. So I know an American woman in Tokyo who rode her bike an hour to work. She told me it was either get a bike or go to jail for battery, possibly manslaughter. Yep, there you go. I'm not a lady, and I've never been groped on a train. I don't know if I would actually even get upset. Cut it out. But anyway, yeah, I've heard, American women are pretty much fair game on a train. So yeah, I feel sorry for some women, not because of being groped, but you've got Japanese guys and guys in general are pretty big, and you've got some woman who's like, her head about comes up to here, and she's on these commuter trains. It can get pretty packed. I have to feel sorry for women at times. Okay. There was talk of a foreign woman who groped men on the trains. Yeah, okay. I don't know. I never heard of that, but what did the guys do, I wonder? Did they complain? Don't get me wrong. I do not support sexual harassment. However, I do believe in innocent until proven guilty. Of course, of course. I'm I have heard of instances where some women have complained and it came out that it was not true. There was something I read recently about that. That's not the norm though. I think hmm, I think there's a lot more in the other direction than that. Just imagine what she felt on her backside for 7 minutes. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So it never been that lucky. Yeah, it's too bad. We usually have a few ladies running around here, and there are not no women among our viewers who would like to chime in on this. But what is it like in other countries? I wonder. Is groping a problem, like in New York or the Chicago subway? Do they have the same problem, or is the fact that Gaijin women are more prone to take a swing at you that it happens less frequently. I um I was on a train one time where this young lady was actually trying to run away from a guy who was following her around and she happened to sit down in a seat. She was and she sat down in this seat and sat. She looked so scared, and this guy came up and stood in front of her, and she stood up, and this guy came right up to her face. It was going, and the guy looked like he had something wrong upstairs, but nobody did anything, and this woman was visibly upset. So I grabbed the guy. I grabbed him by the shirt. What are you doing? And and the woman got off at the next station. She never said anything to me. Got off at the next station, and the guy got off at the next station and ran after her. And I didn't want to get off at the next station, but I never knew what happened. Very, very weird. And all right, other detectives were observing. Could have been, though though it doesn't. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point, Kansai Boxer, because as far as I know, these kind of detective sting operations tend to travel in groups or operate in groups. You may be very well right, though the story doesn't say so. Now, Tokyo Dances, they've got women only cars in the morning these days. Yes, they do. One car at the very front of the train, women only. Very good. Okay. Some people complain about that. That's discrimination. Probably the pervs. Japanese guys are not always the coolest in the world. Oh, right. I don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole because I have my own opinions, but I have a channel to run, and I have comments to answer, so I'm going to steer clear of that. Okay, Dan comes up and he says, in the UK, it seems that raping is the big problem. Yeah, the rape gangs or the grooming gangs, they call them, which you're not allowed to talk about if you're in the UK. But since we're not, I guess we are able to talk about them here. Yeah, yeah, I'd like to talk about it, Edward, but but yeah, the UK situation seems to be becoming more and more unsustainable as we speak, and it's really interesting to see what's going to happen over there in the end. There seems to be a very very big friction building up over there, and I hope that our UK cousins will have a good outcome to that one. All right. Well, that's the last story I have is this Everybody is so subdued today. I hope you're enjoying yourself. The we do have a little bit more. We've gone on an hour and 45 minutes. I could go on a little bit longer, so I'll just open the floor to you. Is there anything you'd like to talk about? Let's have it. If there's anything about the channel you'd like to know, in the last live stream on what is that, Saturday? Some people were saying, well, you really want to do 2 live streams a week. Maybe you should do it a few live streams a month instead. So if you'd like to pine in or chime in on that one, I'd appreciate it. I'm guessing the UK situation and in Europe is not going to end well. Yep, and I'm guessing that too. There seems to be some kind of boil building, and when that boil pops, it's going to be a bad situation, because it's hard to see how it is going to end well. Like the one streamer that I like to watch says, now they seem to be turning the migrant boats back, but it may go so far as they start sinking the migrant boats. I don't, let's hope it doesn't come to that, but it could. So I hope they do something. It seemed, but I can never understand in the UK that they have a government, or they have a prime minister, and they say that this prime minister has like a 9% support rate, meaning that everybody hates him, but nothing changes. Why can such an unpopular government stay in power? I can't understand it, but I don't understand the parliamentary system very well, so I don't know. All right. Any comments about the frequency of live streams? You want to twice a week is good, once a week is good, Saturday is good, Wednesday is good. Some of you who are here now were here the other day, and so maybe you've already chimed in on this. No, nothing? Okay. I'm guessing that there are political situations that have resulted in what is happening in Europe and the States is the same in Japan. So we're getting the same here. Yeah, there's one thing, when we look at Japan, I can, they seem to be slow to act. And people say, well, everybody, even about migrant workers, people used to complain all the time. Well, Japan better, get with it, because free immigration is the way of the world, and Japan is just, stuck in the past. But, Japan's inability to act quickly, or unwillingness to act quickly, sometimes can be seen as indecisiveness, or sometimes can be seen as ossification of their administrative state. But it also can be seen as being careful, all right, before acting, acting rashly, or before taking an action you may regret later. So sometimes I get the impression that Japan sits there and watches what's happening everywhere else before they start moving. So Japan's reaction to immigration, though it is coming and though it is becoming stricter, came a lot earlier than what it did in other countries. So it seems like Japan may have seen what happened in the United States and in Europe and acted to thwart it before it got out of hand. Okay, Keystone says once a week or every other week. Okay, thank you for your opinion on that. Dan says, I don't know. A while ago, Japan dealt with the influx of undesirable foreigners pretty quickly. You're correct. You are correct. And there was a time, there was one time there was some kind of dreamer um, demonstration in the United States. This was way back. I don't remember exactly when, but way before any of this that's happening in the United States was even happening yet. And there we were seeing images coming from the United States of people carrying Mexican flags and all, and we want our rights, and I'm a dreamer, and I want to, immigration reform, and making a lot of noise and flag waving and things like that. And I was talking to my brother on the phone, and he said, half jokingly, yeah, well, you ought to get some of you and your gaijin buddies over there to demonstrate for your rights in Japan. Or he said, what would happen if you got together with your gaijin buddies and had a demonstration like that in Japan? And I said, well, we could probably do it. But I imagine that at the end, at the other end, where the demonstration ends, there would be a line of buses waiting for us, and the destination on the bus would be Narita Airport, and it would be dealt with that way. And Japan used to do that all the time. If there was a segment of foreigners causing problems in Japan, they'd disappear. They would just, one day they would be there, and the next day they wouldn't. And that's what all of this renewal of your visa or your period of stay or even your permanent residence is all aimed at doing. It's all aimed at keeping you under the thumb of the government, which some people may bristle at, say, I don't want to, I've got my human rights. But then again, it keeps things under control. In my last video, I mentioned something like this. Some of the things that we find so oppressive and so overbearing and so old-fashioned in Japan are actually the things that are built into the system that help to keep Japan Japan. And this was pointed out by a commenter. And they said some of the very good things, like in the United States, human rights, being open, give me your masses and oppressed, even gun control, affirmative action, DEI. These are some very well-meaning and good objective policies that may be leading to the ruin of America. So this commenter pointed out, bad aspects of Japan protect what is Japan, and good aspects of America may be destroying what's America. Good concept. Whether it's good or not, true or not, well, I guess we could discuss it, but that really struck me, that particular comment. Okay, the last time the government acted quickly, it didn't end well. Post-war Japan got the message not to stick your neck out. Okay, yeah, there you go. That's true. A lot of Japanese people have also have an inbred distrust of the government because they know that it can run amok. All right. Okubo, Shin Okubo was overrun with foreigners. Yeah, bad kind of foreigners. Yeah, doing all kinds of bad things. Have they cleaned that up? Okay, let's see. A lot of prostitutes out in that area too. No, that's the government is a parasite everywhere, and appointing taxpayers is cheaper than raising them, and government employees don't care who pays taxes. Yes, very true. Very true. I share that actually. Let's import people because we need people to support our national health system or our social security system, or we need taxpayers. I really wonder about the wisdom of that particular strategy. I remember the area around Ueno was filled with idle Iranian men who were fleeing the Iran-Iraq war. If you wanted something other than cigarettes to smoke, they had it. That's exactly what I had in mind when I had talked about certain groups of foreigners disappearing all of a sudden. And it was the Iranian men who were fleeing the Iran-Iraq war. A lot of Iranian men, young men, came into the country at that time. And what they used to do, I'm not familiar with the Ueno area as much as I'm familiar with the Shinjuku area. And Shinjuku is a place where there were a lot of train changes occurring. And, it's a destination also. And there would be clutches of 5 or 6 young Iranian men inside the train gates, standing there. They would have their arms crossed, and they'd be checking out the women, giving these, hey, dude, you looking at me kind of looks at the other passersby. They weren't doing anything, but they were acting they had an aggressive mood about them. They had an aggressive thing about them. You didn't just look at them and you felt intimidated by their demeanor. And of course, they used to gather in Yoyogi Park every weekend and give haircuts. They would give haircuts to each other, or some people would have a haircut chair in the park and charge people. And there were big gatherings. And, it was okay at the beginning, but Japanese people started complaining to their representatives, and it became an issue. It became a political issue. And then one day, like I said, whoop, where are all the Iranians? They were gone. I still don't know what happened to them. Were they suddenly kicked out? Were they rounded up and shown the door? I don't know, but they were just not there anymore. And like I said, that's the visa renewal process. You've got to renew your visa. And even if you're here for a long time, you go in one day and say, yeah, I want to renew my visa. And they say, oh, you forgot to dot this I and cross that T. Bye, you're out. And you're out. And there's none of this, oh, I'm going to go see a judge and they're going to let me stay here while I wait the decision of my case. When you're out, you're out. I remember seeing them selling fake telephone cards. Yes, when there were still pay phones, you used to get a prepaid card, and you could buy one cheaply and get a lot of use out of it. Yep, I heard an interview of one of those Iranians, and he said he was a good guy and said the Iranians in Tokyo running illegal scams were from a certain area of Tehran, ghetto area, and they were scary. I didn't know that, Dan. Thanks for the information. Of course, like Stephen Jobs said, you should never judge a book by its cover, but everybody does. And we can never say that all Iranians are bad and evil or what shall I say, scary looking just because those guys were. But at that time, that's the impression that everybody had. What may work well in largely monoethnic Japan may not be advisable for multi-ethnic racial America and vice versa. Yes, very true. That's one way that Japan was lucky in the past, that it was monoethnic and I wouldn't say racial, but okay. But it was easier for everybody to accept things. That's where the word gaijin came from, right? And so people would say something, and everybody would go, "Yeah, okay, sounds good." And you'd question it, and you would ask your friend, why do people think that? That's not true. And they would always answer you, well, Japanese people think, because they did. And but when you start bringing in people to solve your demographic problem, that is no longer the case. And I told Japanese people this for a long time ago when they first started bringing in people to do certain kind of work. I said, be careful because it sounds good. I got somebody, doing this work that I don't want to do. But you bring in enough people and then they get into a group and then they say, well, let's try to get the right to do this. Let's try to get the right, and you give them this, okay, we'll give you this right to do that. When you succumb to somebody's demand or request, they never say, oh, Joe Blow's nice because they agreed with me. They only feel, got it. What's next? Remember that. Okay. Okay. Importing votes. There you go. I mean, that's true in the United States. They're trying to dilute the voting pool, if not the gene. No, I'm not going to say that. But I was going to say that as a joke, but it was a joke, so don't get excited. But anyway, yeah, they definitely want to do that in the United States. I hope they don't make that mistake here. In Shin Okubo, they were managing Thai hookers for their Yakuza overlords. There you go. Yeah. I think in Shin Okubo these days, there are a lot of Japanese young ladies who are taking up the profession. Not that I know, it's what I read in the news. All right. Good. I didn't. Oh, I was thinking about you. Udatsu Adventures, because we were talking about groping on the train. And as soon as we started talking about groping on the train, I thought of you because we were just a bunch of guys talking about groping on the train. And I was wondering if you had any experience, not groping, but being a gropee during your time in Japan. Okay. This is all there is. Greeting. Hi. Are you one of our newest subscribers? If you are, welcome. Nice to have you here. And I hope you enjoy the discussion. It's not an original idea for governments to export their undesirables to other countries. Yes, that's true. And that's one thing that Donald J. is always railing against is that some countries, he says, emptied their jails. And there was the Mariel boat lift that evidently Cuba did the same thing to the United States when Jimmy Carter was president. But yes, that's true. And wouldn't you? If you had a bunch of people, a bunch of troublemakers, wouldn't you want to send them somewhere else? So I hope that Japan does have something. Well, I know they have something in place to kick people out when they're shown to be undesirable, but I hope they have something in place to not allow them in to begin with. Thanks for the chat. In 2 years, I'm going to try. In 2 years, I'm not retired yet, and it won't be a Japan-centric channel. Well, Shred Edward, if you do a channel, I'll tell you, it's a lot of fun. And if you want to know about my experience at that time, if I'm still above ground, if you want I wouldn't say advice, but if you want my opinions about certain things, I'll be happy to give it to you, and I'll be happy to help promote your channel when you get it going. It's a lot of fun. And if you have any free time at all, I strongly encourage you to start sooner rather than later. Don't wait until you're retired. Try to get going and have something built up. And then when you get retired, you can hit the ground running. But that's my opinion. I've been used as a pillow a few times. Okay, all right. Somebody sitting next to you. Yeah, that being used as a pillow is nice. I tend to, if it's a guy doing that, if it's a young lady doing that, I tend to, no, I'm joking. Not really. Not really what? I don't really do that, or I'm not really joking. That's for you to decide. Tokyo Dan says, Gad Sad talks about how just a few non-assimilating foreigners are nice and respectful. A group becomes noisy, and when they hit 10 or 20%, they want to change the system. Yeah. Okay. Wouldn't you? Yeah. I don't believe in, living in Japan as long as I have, as a minority, as a gaijin. I don't believe in banding together and saying, I have a right to do this or I have a right to do that. No way. I would never do that. Unless, somebody said, I'm going to shoot you. I say, oh, I've got a right to life. But no, I don't think that, like one of my commenters said recently, I'm here because I want to be here. Um, I don't have to be here. I made the decision to come here. So that's that. Okay. You're very welcome, Edward. Since we got the same name, hey man, why not? No, I have to retire because most of my life is not something my uni wants me to. There's that too. There's that too. Um, I'm careful. I'm careful about my opinion. I'll give my opinion. And to tell you the truth, I don't work directly for a university. I work for a company that sends me to the university. So it's a little bit different. I don't know if they're going to have anything to say when I go back to work. If they're going to say, hey, cut that stuff out. Well, I'll have to decide what to cut out. Good day. Thank you for sharing your experience. It's been less than 4 years since I moved to Japan. It's always nice to hear stories about previous times and those who have been here for a long time. Well, Sergeant Ruffles, thank you. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for the comment. Maybe you're one of the newer subscribers, maybe. It's nice to have you aboard, and please don't feel afraid to say what you want. 4 years, that's a pretty good stretch. Things are only getting better and better. The more you learn, the more you learn, the more educational it becomes. But keep an open mind, and if you do that, and if you're able to take the good with the bad, the positive with the negative, you'll be just fine. Takeichi is only getting flack from the politicians who make their careers on immigrants who have intention of integrating themselves. Yes, that's true. The previous prime minister, that guy was a globalist from the get-go, and he had a real big plan, and that's why Takaichi won. I mean, I say she's almost Trumpian in her victory because she won as a conservative. As a backlash against what some of these globalist politicians were trying to accomplish, and it did show what Japanese people are basically a conservative bunch. Keep that in mind, because it is true, in my opinion. Okay, that's why I don't like the liberals that go over there and complain and try to change Japan to be more like us. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I blame the liberals, but there are definitely people who come here and want Japan to become a little America, and they are the most annoying people. When I first started this channel, I don't know if you folks saw that. Some guy came on here and he says, "Why are you calling yourself Gaijin? Don't you know that that's the N word in Japan? And it's this and it's that, and you better change the name of your channel." What a jerk, anyway, I don't want to get into it, but if you know what I'm trying to say, I mean, this person was taking American standards and applying it to what's going on in Japan, which just doesn't work. And like I said, those people basically make me sick, and I wish they'd all shut up and go away. Thank you for the chat. Got to go. Okay, Richard, thank you. Sorry for going too long. This may end up being our longest. I gotta hurry up and what they used to call it, ratchet jaw. Tighten up my ratchet jaw. Do you have recommendations for places to learn Japanese? I am studying to take the JLPT N1, and I would like to get help studying Japanese while working in Tokyo full time. Now, I don't know anything offhand. I'm sure there are a lot of good places, and if somebody would like to chime in on this, I think it would be greatly appreciated. I studied Japanese by going to an intensive Japanese class at a university, so I don't think that applies to your full-time working thing. There are probably a lot of places where you can learn Japanese, but it's finding a good one. So I'll let that hang for a while and see if somebody comes up with something. Some people might know what to say. So, yeah, I see some comments coming up. So please hold on. Okay, I've always said that Trump looks like a bunny compared to her. Yeah, people say that she looks like what, alfalfa or ET or something like that. But I think she's, for her age, she's pretty cute. And like Tokyo Dan likes to say, she knows how to use her eyes in a sexy way. Okay. Uh, Globalist is too kind, more like employees for the CCP. I didn't want to say that, but now that you mentioned it, there was a lot of talk about that, and there was that guy, even Takaichi's comment about Taiwan and about Japan, about that being a trigger, about Japan having to defend itself. She she said something that was very diplomatic and less aggressive when first questioned. But there was one particular Diet member who pushed her, kept pushing her. Well, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about, until she said what she said. And that particular Diet member was from a family who has big, big Chi-Com um, economic interests, a chain of stores and things like that. And he got voted out of office. And a lot of the globalists that were have been rumored to have contacts with the CCP were also voted out of office. So you may be right. Absolutely not. Japanese people say gaijin all the time without any bad intentions. Correct. It's a word. It's a word. It's a word. Like a lot of other words, use a word, whoop, where did it go? It's not there anymore, unless you write it down. But yeah, it's a word. It means foreigner. Shut up already. All right. Yakitori bars were my classroom. There you go. And that's a good place to learn, actually, hanging out. If you got the time to drink and hang out with the people, that's the best way to learn. I learned a lot of Japanese when I first got here by watching TV and by hanging out with Japanese people. Start at your local city hall community center. Preply is good for tutors on your time. Okay, Preply. I guess that's a service that you can hook up with a tutor and set up a time that's convenient for you. And their City Hall Community Center may have English. Okay, Yakitori bars. Sounds good, doesn't it? And Hub is a great place too. Okay, I don't know about those. Dan says, funny how that globalist comment didn't show up in my chat feed. I wonder why. Shadow banning? Not by me, Dan. Could be by, I found out recently that I didn't know this until last week. When my one big video blew up and I got tons and tons of comments and I was going through and doing stuff. And one guy said, well, my comment disappeared and I didn't do anything with it. And so I started looking for it. And I found out that there are 3 chat areas on YouTube, actually a 4th one, but there are 3 that I can see. One is the normal chat. And I was just going through normal chat. I mean comments about the videos. And I would go through the normal comments and reply or like and stuff like that. And I would think that was it. And then this guy says, my comment disappeared. So I started looking around more. And then there's also an area called held. And that is YouTube automatically puts certain comments that it deems to be questionable into like a purgatory. And then I have to go in there and manually okay a comment for it to appear. Or I can just not okay it and it never appears. And then there's another area called Potentially Harmful. And you click on that one, and it actually gives you a warning message. It says, warning, some of these comments may contain language that will cause you to go blind or something. I don't know. And so I got on those, and generally YouTube was correct. There was some pretty gross, name calling and things like that, and insults on there. Some of them weren't, but some of them were. Most of them were. So I thought that was okay. So I thought, well, that's cool. Then I found out, thanks to AI, that YouTube also takes it upon itself to totally delete certain comments that it deems to be unacceptable. So you're at 4 levels. And of course, I can shadow ban someone too if I want to, though I very, very, very rarely do. I'm not going to say I never do, but no, as far as somebody's opinion about something like that, even a political opinion, I'll never shadow ban anybody. The only time I would shadow ban somebody is if they come in and start insulting people, especially moi, and just saying, "Oh, you're such a stupid asshole." Okay, shadow ban. Go talk to the clouds. I don't maintain this channel to give somebody a platform to dump on me. Anyway, enough about that. Maybe next time we can talk about North Korean schools, since we are ripping off Band-Aids. Well, I don't know much about North Korean schools. I'll see if I can find out some information, since we can discuss it then. But I don't know anything at all about North Korean schools. So if you do, we'll be sure to be there. And Sunaku, yeah, that's a good place to learn Japanese. Something Dan said earlier wasn't in my chat until I put it to all right when I came in. The thing about the Thai girls. Okay. I guess. Oh, okay. But that Thai girls, that wasn't a bad comment. I bought a Fire Stick to watch Japanese TV while I was back in the States. I haven't watched American TV since. There you go. Watching media is the best place, a best way to learn Japanese. One of the best ways to learn Japanese, especially if you can see movies or dramas or things like that. In fact, I was told, I asked one guy from Denmark who spoke absolutely perfect English. And I told him, I'm always impressed by how good the English is of people from the Scandinavian countries or Germany. Germans are such good English speakers, or other countries throughout Europe. And I said, why is that? And he said, well, it's because we have a lot of American programming on our TV. And I says, well, they do in Japan too. But and he says, yeah, but in our country, we didn't have subtitles or voiceovers. So we had to learn English to watch the TV show. So there you go. That tells you something. The globalist comment showed up in mine in live chat. Okay. And I love my Fire Stick, and isn't it great? By the way, okay, I'll tell you a way that I studied Japanese, and this is how I learned to translate Japanese, and maybe it can be used, because if you learn how to read kanji, it'll help your Japanese ability, and I'll tell you how I did it. And it was taught to me by a mentor of mine who was in the translation business at the time. Now, at that time, I had already studied Japanese at Sophia University, and I told him, okay, I'm still teaching English, and I'd like to become a translator one day. What should I do? And he said this: get a book written in Japanese about a topic that you love or are interested in. Then translate that book into English. He said, spend an hour a day, but an hour is just, a value plucked out of the sky. You can do it 15 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day or 20 minutes. But he said, spend a preset amount of time every day translating your book. Now, what does that? He said, in the beginning, it will be really slow going. You're going to have to look up every kanji, and there are going to be certain structures that you don't understand. And he said it's important that you just don't read the book, because reading is a different mindset and a different process from translation, where you have to write everything down into a coherent sentence. But as you do this little by little every day, some of the kanji will start repeating. Oh, I saw that the other day. That means this. Or the expressions will start repeating, especially since it's a book about a given topic, because the topic, the expressions and the kanji will be limited. And the more you do this, the faster you get. And the more you, maybe the first day you'll do a half a sentence, and the second day you'll get the whole, and the next day you'll get 3 sentences, but it builds. And I followed his advice. At that time, personal computers or computers had just come out, started to become popular. And there were no books in Japan, no English books about how to use a personal computer available in the bookstore. So I bought a Japanese book on how to use a personal computer, and I translated. I still have the notebook there where I translated by hand, longhand, and I eventually became a professional translator doing that. So if you want to try that, that's another way. Sorry for taking up so much time. I found out that some comments I post immediately get posted, some take a minute or more to show up, and others never do. Sorry about that. I don't know what any of that is going on. That's about my YouTube comments. Yeah. Actually, I've got 3 screens here. 2 screens are for this live stream, and 1 screen I have YouTube over here, and the YouTube screen shows what happened about 15 or 20 seconds ago. Very annoying. All right. I see it now. For some reason, I had top chat selected. There's you got to be careful about that. But I did select live chat at the beginning. Yeah, that happens. I got to watch that too. I'm of the opinion that it has to do with YouTube tech issues rather than shadow bans. They are, yes, especially comments. YouTube comments are, you would think that they, in being part of Google, they would have all these techs having the YouTube comments are really horrible. I have a hard time keeping them straight. Okay, sorry about that. Well, YouTube can get triggered by random combinations of words and ban users automatic. Happened to me before. Yeah, the guy who complained during the last live stream that his comment didn't show up is a really opinionated guy. And according to what I found out, what AI told me, that YouTube actually doesn't look at just the comments that are going on now. They keep a history of a person. And if a person has a certain history, they are less flexible with that person. They are quick to take their comments down. But like I said, I have nothing to do with that. So, oh yes, we use VPN for Japanese Prime and Netflix. There you go. Germans are generally good at languages, as I've noticed. Absolutely. Unbelievably. I really envy them. They seem to be really, really good. Can you talk about what Japan was like when going to yakitori's and taking the train back in the early 1970s? Yeah, I don't know about now. We're getting into 2.5 hours. What? Okay. I'll make a note about that. Maybe I'll do one of my Japan memory videos about something like that. Yeah, it was a different Japan back then. Very different Japan back then. Yeah. This is how I'm working through my 1960s Japanese reader. Okay, what is by translating it? Good move. It'll help you a lot. Oh, good. I'm glad you found them helpful. Good luck with your studies. And if you are planning to come back to Japan, we look forward to seeing you someday. That's greatly great. Oh, thank you. I'm glad that you found that helpful. And it works. I guarantee it works. Funny, the majority of my Netflix inbox is overwhelmingly Japanese and Korean productions, not to learn the language, but for more social observation. Love the differences in the productions. Okay. That's interesting. Interesting stuff. It was a different Japan, which is why I'm interested. Yeah, when I came here, just to give you some perspective, it was 360 yen to the dollar. The Shinkansen only went down to Osaka, which means that the Fukuoka where I was living was a real backwater, and it was a real trip. Wonderful, wonderful adventure, great experience, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Okay, I'll even tell you why did I go to Fukuoka? I was in the army when I first went there. I don't know if I ever related it, but there was a reason I ended up in Fukuoka, and it was a real trivial reason. And it's really interesting that for such a trivial reason, I changed my life. Okay, Sergeant Ruffles, looking forward to seeing a video on that topic. Okay, it'll light a fire under my butt to go out and do it. And then, I'll do a video and then we can talk about it here more. Okay. Okay. Oh. Yes, I got a 3-year visa and moving back to Tokyo in 2. Wow, way to go. I've been in New York City 1 year and Hawaii 4 years, but I'm looking forward to working on permanent residency in Japan this time around. Very good. If you like, I'm not, I'm not a stalker or anything like that, but I have a my email address, my Gmail address for contact is shown on the main page. If you go to the main page, there's a link that says more. If you click on more, it'll say show contact or something like that. If you drop me a line, if you want to jump in for an interview sometime, or if anybody would like to jump in for an interview on a video or on a live stream, let me know, and I'd be happy to have you around. Happy to have you join me, either in person or online, or on this kind of interview. And it would be fun. I like to hear about other people's opinions and adventures. So, good luck on your move, and see you soon. Fukuoka is developing really fast recently. Absolutely. It sure is. It's changing a lot. It's growing up a lot, but it's still a bit behind Tokyo. It is. Take it from me. It was warm. Bing bong. That was it. I was going from Alaska. I think I told that before. You must have heard when I said that before. Okay. But when I got here in early 1970, Fukuoka was like a modern city compared to Pittsburgh, PA. Yeah, one thing that's good about Fukuoka is a modern city. Yeah, it's nice. And the great thing about it is it's very compact. You can go anywhere easily, quickly. And you can go to the beach, you can go to the mountain, you can go to downtown within a matter of less than an hour. It's a very interesting place. We just got our son's new passport back so we can start visa prep now. Good. A little scary now that it's real. My husband is fed up with his boss and ready to go home and sing that song. Take this job and shove it, huh? Airport is super convenient. Isn't it really? I mean, Fukuoka, you get off the airplane, you get on a subway, and like 10 or 15 minutes later, you're downtown. Beautiful place. Okay. Hey, thank you, and you're welcome. And like I said, give us a jangle, and we'll put you on here. Well, I think I've overstayed my welcome here a bit. We still got quite a few visitors, but I think I better let you all get into get to eat lunch or eat dinner or whatever you want to do. I'll try to do this in a way that doesn't cut any. I'm way too shy, and my English is bad for an interview. But I know a person who would be very, very interesting to talk. He's in America, living in Chiba for over 20 years. Please have him give me a call, or if you want to send me an email and give me that person's email address, I'll contact them. It'd be fun to hear other people's experiences, because I'm sure everyone is unique. And Chiba is not that far from here. I could even go out to Chiba with a camera and go have a talk. Sounds good. Please, Sergeant Ruffles, drop me a line if you can. Tokyo Dan says the runway was shared by Itosuke Air Force Base. Yep. Fukuoka Airport was now Fukuoka International Airport, used to be a part of the Itosuke Air Force Base, and that's where Dan was assigned back in Fukuoka back then. And I was assigned across Hakata Bay at another small base. Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining us, and it's really inspiring. And like I said, we had such an influx, such a big explosion in subscribers on our channel, and I'm without you guys, the channel would be nothing. I mean, it was only in August that I had 35 subscribers, and I was dreaming of the day that I would hit 50. And now we are growing by leaps and bounds, and I really appreciate it. And I hope you can continue to be with us. And I'll be thinking about how to do the live stream. I'll probably discuss it with my good friend Tokyo Dan, and get back to you on that. Yeah, thank you, Keystone. It was nice to have you here. And I hope you would be able to. Yeah, please do. And don't be afraid. I don't ambush people or anything like that. It's all a matter of, let's get to know each other and all of that. Okay, again, thank you for coming, and we'll see you the next time.